All right. Going to call to order the March 26th meeting of the Public Health and Safety Standing Committee. And the first matter in front of us is the minutes. Did anybody have a problem with the minutes? Well, Jody wrote them, so she doesn't have any problem. I know. Did you have a chance to look them through, Doug?
Yes, I did.
So all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, perfect. Fireworks, Jody was going to write the resolution.
Yes, I'm working on it, but I don't have it in enough of a form for us.
To send it to Dennis.
Yeah, to send to Dennis, and then with everything that's been on our agenda, I doubt he would have had time to review it anyway. So.
Well, and we're not really rushed when you consider that it just needs to be on the,
Right,
on the November ballot, which is what, everything's due in August or something?
yeah, so
Okay.
we'll, I will, get more serious about that, and have,
We
try to
need
get a
through
rough,
some of this other.
yeah, try to get a rough draft of that.
Public Safety District, 5 miles outside the city limit. Do we have the percentage of calls from the police department that respond to Grandview, South, and Woodlands?
No.
No.
I understand. But do you wanna go ahead and talk about your number of calls and stuff there?
Sure,
So-
yeah, since we've, been on, since I've been here, when I originally started, we were using a system called IMC. I believe in 2020 or 2021, we had switched over to our new system, which is Zerker. And since then, since we've been in that system, we've had approximately more or less 9,542 calls. First quarter of 2023, 280 traffic stops. Non-traffic related CFSs, which is calls for services, 486. For that, 486 calls, 115 required a report written. And that's everything from assault, sex assault, drugs, motor vehicle crashes, domestic violence, all that good stuff.
How long does it take to write in a report typically?
For, oh gosh, I'd say like a DUI report, it'll pull an officer off the street from start to finish for approximately 7 hours. For like a theft, maybe an hour. For sex offense, a couple of weeks to maybe a month. If that's all he's doing, like he's not completing all of his other duties that are assigned to him. For felony drug case, probably a couple of weeks, which we have a lot of those. Disturbance calls, about an hour. Fraud, 20 minutes. What else do we have? Vehicle crash, a couple hours.
Plus being on scene.
Plus being on scene, yeah, we're talking about like sitting at a desk and hammering out a report though. And with that report, it's not just a narrative anymore, like where they write it by hand. It's a narrative, it's digital evidence, photographs, physical evidence, IT related work like burning our body camera video, dash cam video, follow-up statements, interviews, which those can, I had one 2 weeks ago that lasted like 4 hours, just an interview. And then we have to transcribe those, which is a lot of fun.
Do you have someone who helps to do all of that now?
Yes, so, I mean, but with the way our reports are, we kind of go line by line, and they're not transcribed to the exact detail.
Okay.
We send those off to a company to have them do them for us, but they do have to go into our narrative about what was asked, what was said.
Okay, but the city, it sounds like we don't actually, do you
No.
have an assistant anymore?
Yeah, I do,
Okay.
yeah, we got Monica, but, I don't, that would be a full-time job for her.
Okay.
2024, our numbers actually went down a little bit. We're almost into April right now, so we could probably call it the same. First quarter, 302 traffic stops, non-traffic related incidents, 343, with 84 entries into our computer system for report writing. So a grand total of 645 calls.
So this is why you need a detective?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
that'd be nice.
when you have a case, I'm just curious, how many, are they going through the system? Are they being pled out, or are they getting, I mean, how does that typically work?
It depends on the details of the case. There are plans on cases that
Yeah.
they'll come in and plead guilty. It's pretty, everybody's entitled to discovery, including defense. And once, a lot of times when they watch that video, they're like, you might want to plead guilty to this one. A lot of times, there's a lot of suppression hearings and stuff like that we go through, or my guys go through. Yeah, it's hit and miss, and we use two different attorneys' offices.
Okay.
One for our misdemeanor crime and the other for our felony crime.
How much time do you spend in court?
Not a lot.
Officers?
Not a lot.
Not that much?
Not that much. Personally, gosh, it's, years back when I was on the street all the time, I'd go to court, it seems like often, and it was mostly silly stuff like DUIs, nobody wants a DUI on their record. But for the more serious crime, evidence, body camera, stuff like that, it's difficult to fight in court. But when we do go to a trial, like, say, for like a felony drug case or like a felony sex assault, which all those are felony, or domestic violence, we could be in court for a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the felony cases, this is the county attorney that?
It's county, yep, county attorney that
prosecutes.
prosecutes our felony
Okay.
cases, yeah. Yeah.
Do you usually have to go up to Billings for any of those, or? is it
For federal court,
Rarely?
very rarely, yeah. But it does happen,
Yeah,
yeah.
that would take out an officer for a whole day,
Oh, yeah,
at least.
yeah, especially if they're on night shift, because they can't be in court all day, and then I expect them to come in and work 10 hours on a graveyard shift, so, yeah, staffing, where we gotta kind of work our magic there, yeah, we have our, so one of my sergeants is in charge of the scheduling, and he's a busy man, just with moving guys around,
You normally have 2 on graveyard?
Depends on the day. We can have, so our overlap days where everybody works, we have one of those every week. And we could have at one time anywhere from 3 to 5 officers on. But that's just at the shift overlap. I'm going home, these guys are coming on. Night shift, normally swing shift, we'll have 2 officers, and then graveyards will have 1 during the weekends, a little bit more slim during the week. Probably 2. Which is good, not great.
And graveyard is midnight to 8, or?
No, graveyards are 9 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning, so my guys are on 10-hour shifts. We really value that extra day off every week, so it's important. Yeah.
So there's, did you say there was no way to tell really how many of those calls?
As of right now, I have their administrative secretary working on that. I spoke with her,
Okay.
and she says, she told me, she's like, yes, we can do it, but I have to figure out how. It's a confusing system to run numbers on.
And if it's just a call where there's no report, there's not going to be, I mean,
No.
is it a little harder to track?
No, it'll flag an officer from Red Lodge PD responding, because
Okay.
what we refer to it as is attaching ourselves to a call.
Okay,
Like if there's like a rollover crash in Fox,
yeah,
we'll jump on the radio and say, attach me to that call, I'll be en route. Or we can just hit a couple of buttons on our computer screen, and that will attach us to the call. So when that call statistic comes up, it'll show there was an RLPD response as well.
okay,
Yeah. And depending on where, it's a really big county,
yes.
depending on where those guys are. They can't be everywhere at once, they have a really big area to patrol.
Well, and then it's not, I mean, even highway patrol, it takes them an hour sometimes to get here. or more.
Depends, yeah, I think their detachment up here is kind of short, and it has been for a few years.
Because they have you.
No, gosh, no, that's not me. I sit at the desk. These guys, highway patrol can be anywhere from like Big Timber, in this specific detachment, anywhere from like Big Timber to like just south of Billings. And then, you know, all four corners there,
Yeah.
so.
Or they can be up at Quincy.
It's-
That's a long.
It wasn't, you know, it's, these guys, I mean, like, law enforcement in general is a lot busier now than we were when I started. When I started, Red Lodge was kind of like the central hub of where everything happened. And highway patrol, troopers and sheriff's deputies would hang fairly close to Red Lodge, you know, and they'd respond to calls in the valley, stuff like that. But, you know, now, these guys are spread, you know, everybody's spread thin, but these guys are in the valley, South County, North County. You know, they have an extension off of 421 that they have to patrol. So they're spread all over the place. Yeah.
Oh, you get a bad storm and they're.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, normally with the bad storms, they're either out on Highway 78 or Highway 308 all day, so.
So does the dispatch log show the street number that was responded to, the name of the street?
Oh, yeah. That's,
So that's what I was thinking, you could go through, I know all the names of all the streets in
sure.
those three subdivisions. So
Yeah.
you can easily highlight
Uh-huh.
those street names,
Yeah.
and even though it wouldn't automatically do it.
What I can do, and like, this is the more simple way to do it that I have, Michelle over there helping me out with, is, she can group that all into one, county calls with an RLPD response.
That'll work better,
Or-
because if it's on the highway, T12, like just outside
Sure.
the,
Or an RLPD self-initiated contact out in the county, right?
Yeah.
So, get behind a car and they're a little, you know, woozy, or something is wrong, and pull them over and box. The call originated, I guess, in the county, so.
yeah, so there's just more to it than just where the address, so. Perfect. Yeah, I guess we'll just keep working on those numbers then, on that as well. Now, I can get with Lonnie because we had talked about doing this public safety district last year. And she had some numbers of what we would have to, how much we would have to ask for and how much money it would bring in. So she already has some of those numbers,
Yeah.
from last year, and I'm sure it's probably changed a little bit, but I'll get with Lonnie on that.
Well, I also did some work on the three subdivisions, if we were to annex them, what kind of money would come into the city?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, did you
That
get
was-
Dave's response on that?
Just no rush at this point, which I totally understand there's no
Yeah.
rush, but it,
Yeah, I think it's more, yeah,
trying to figure out what kind of benefit it would be to the police department is where I was trying to go.
yeah,
Since you're providing services for free right now.
yeah, it didn't sound like the budget money coming from there would necessarily help out our budget situation with the police department. Probably all be eaten up by public works plowing roads.
Yeah, that's where we were going, is that
Yeah.
public works would then be, not only that, not only plowing, but maintaining those roads,
Yeah,
so.
so, but I guess we'll get those numbers in more when Mike,
I was kind of sad that a $500,000 house or $600,000 house would only pay about $550 in taxes to the city of Red Lodge,
yeah,
$550.
That's on the low end of those houses, too.
Yeah, it is on the low end of those houses. Well, with Woodbridge, you know, you've got those $200,000 or $300,000 duplexes, so,
Sure.
yeah.
but
Yeah.
still,
I think, yeah, you definitely would get some more money out of the houses out of, the Remington Ranch, because there's a couple.
some really pricey ones.
Yeah,
But generally,
double
they're
that,
not
but-
Grandview or Grandview South, because those are half acre and
Right.
three-quarter acre.
And
We
that's
go
what
past that,
right,
now we're truly in the county, and it's nothing we can do about it.
right. Yeah, because those weren't included in that,
That they don't have to,
because they don't have city sewer.
No.
They don't have city services at all,
no.
except for police.
Do you ever get any calls at that business park off Pepsi Drive?
Yeah. Yeah, self-initiated contact mostly, but we have been out there.
Because they have public sewer too. Well, they have the option of public sewer.
Are they hooked up to it then?
Somehow.
Yeah, okay.
But again, that's a really old subdivision, so that probably wasn't unless there was a sewer agreement that said that they could be on.
I thought that was about the same time as the Remington Ranch.
I don't think so. Well, maybe Remington Ranch as a whole,
Yeah. I think Brian,
but Remington Ranch, when it was subdivided, didn't include septic, sewer.
right, yeah.
Then when
no.
Grandview came in and he brought the sewer,
Right.
he offered it to those on Pepsi Drive. Because I know the guy that butts up against Grandview, even though it's a vacant lot, he went ahead and paid for sewer. And I'm assuming that the others did too, especially Kings Covered, it would be a real
Yeah.
advantage to them. And then there's a couple office buildings.
Yeah, no, I would think that if they get city services, it would be the same. I don't know, it's something to check into, I guess. Not by us, but yeah.
I just didn't think that it would be a big policing area.
Yeah, so, well, we'll
Because
continue to
maybe
get the
break-ins
numbers.
or something to the chalk.
To the chocolate factory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly it's self-initiated contact up there, or officer-initiated contact with traffic stuff and stuff like that. I used to live at the very top end of Fox Road, that butted up to the Forest Service land. People speed around there quite a bit.
Really, I'm so surprised.
Yeah, and it's kind of spooky, because coming off Fox Road onto, 78, it's just that stop sign. You really gotta look both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're doing, what, 55 there?
Yeah, we're going slow, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, they're supposed to be going 55.
Supposed to be going 55, right?
Okay.
So Jody, you said Lonnie has the numbers?
Well, she had worked up, admin and finance had talked about it this last year, and, she had some rough numbers for us of like how many mills we would have to ask for in the public safety district to make it worthwhile, and it was to get us an extra, like, $300,000, basically. She had different numbers for, you know, like 300 versus 500,000 of what it would do to people's tax bills.
So we have Mike working on it as well, or?
No, that's different. That's the annexation. This is a public safety district, that is, whether it's annexed or not, where we can go 5 miles outside the city limits,
Right.
to ask the voters if they want to do a public safety district to help fund public safety, primarily our police department.
Right.
Because they're already paying for.
Right, and the numbers we ran last year included all of the city limits,
So-
not just, because it's
She
not
did-
gonna do any good just to do 5 miles out for the public safety district and not do inside the city
You're not
limits.
gonna do
You're not gonna have any money for doing that. You're gonna go through a bunch of work and you could end up with $30,000 or $50,000, which isn't really going to help anything.
And so everybody in the cities they figure that they're already paying for the public safety, so
Yeah,
why would they pay double?
well, that's the education part of it. We have to explain to them, you know, do you want, you know, it comes down to, do you want 24/7 coverage? If you want 24/7 coverage, and we need to be able to pay our officers at the same time, then, you know, we need more money to do that, basically, is what it boils down to. You know, it's a choice, it's a priority. You know, is it your priority to continue the coverage that we have, that we've become accustomed to? And then also bring out the fact that, you know, our population has increased by, you know, 20%, and we have not increased the number of officers in almost 30 years. So, you know, that's our.
30 on the dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's our responsibility, is to get that information out there, and we'll have to start planning some public outreach, you know, with the you know, with the chief, with the officers, you know, possibly, see if we can get a public forum. I know they did one on drugs, you know, and we could possibly do a public meeting at the Roosevelt Center, you know, on trying to explain this. And we could also, you know, I know people get tired of surveys, but I mean, just to, you know, gather what people want, you know.
Well, we know that they want police protection. I
Yeah,
think that's fairly universal, so we start with that.
but I just think you have to educate them. You know, we can't continue the way that we're continuing.
And you want to do it by a mill instead of a flat rate?
Well, the way, I can't remember how we did it last year, that's typically, no, I think we did a flat rate when we calculated it out. It was it was like $100 and some per household to get to like
Where we needed to be.
where we needed to be, yeah. For the, yes,
I think that one of the things you need to take into consideration as a taxpayer, everybody's trying to get into my pocket, right?
absolutely,
Okay?
yep,
So just recently, we had the fire department try and redo their funding,
yep,
which is a priority. Everybody wants the fire department to be available when there's an emergency.
yep,
And what did they do? They
Failed.
voted it down.
failed, yep. Because nobody, I feel that part of that was nobody knew we didn't have our tax bills yet, and everybody knew their tax bills was gonna go up.
But I think part of this is you need to have all of the angles covered to be able to, I'd say, what is the city doing to tighten their belt? Because they're coming after me to tighten my belt because I need to send more money
Right.
into you. So what are you doing to tighten your belt? What are your priorities? Are there some areas that you can trim at the same time as you're asking me to send in? I mean, these are
Yeah.
questions
Oh, yeah.
that the other side's gonna focus on. Your priority is, to focused on this one thing.
Right,
But as a taxpayer, I'm focused on lots of things.
yeah, so definitely a bigger
So
picture
it's that,
out there, for sure.
that full picture of what's the city going, whether it's annexation or what is the city, if it's annexation, what is the city obligated to provide?
Yep.
What are they going to need to work towards providing to those taxpayers in the future? And what are all those costs? So from the annexation side, it's a very complicated subject. From the tax district, that's a little more simplified, but at the same time, the people living there are getting squeezed from multiple directions. And so they prioritize, even though they may want, they don't necessarily
Want to pay.
provide the right answers, like the fire department, where they were voted down. Regardless of why it was voted down,
Yeah.
it wasn't their priority to change that funding.
Right.
So those are things you gotta look at, because there is that, they're paying, we're paying taxes.
Right, oh boy,
And so, and our taxes are going to different pieces of the pie. And as it was stated here, there is the knowledge that we're currently paying for services. And so why are we adding on to what we're already paying? And why are we doubling up, double dipping into the funds? It doesn't matter who it is or what it's for. But the first thing I look at, I've lived here for 45 years, and I've seen city government grow exponentially over 45 years compared to when,
mm-hmm,
things have changed, and I understand that. But it's always the question in the back of my mind is, what is the city doing to keep their belt tight and not just fund things that aren't necessarily necessary?
right,
Fire is necessary, police are necessary, sustainability necessary. There's things that you look at, these programs that have come about, that all take money out of the tax pot, but how necessary are they? Are they feel good? Are they necessary? You have
Yeah.
to look at all those things
Well,
when you're talking about
and-
increasing taxes.
part of the education process we have got to get across to people is that some of these projects and paid with resort tax, like the city pool, that, we have this big pot of money, but we can't use it for our police department, for public safety, or
Right.
their salaries. So, our other option, I felt, was to take the resort tax back to the voters and say, let us use the resort tax to pay our police department, to help pay for them,
Well, and that's realistic, but at the same time, when you start shifting those funds, you're still
Yeah.
got a limited amount
You do, yeah. But, you
Availability
know, I
is
mean,
fun.
I just feel that there's three choices to our citizens. We do nothing and start cutting services, you know, unfortunately, that's, number two, we, do a public safety district and everyone pays a little bit more. You know, and number three, we go back to the voters and ask them to allow, you know, $100,000, $200,000 of the resort tax money to go to public safety. You know, a set amount.
Which I like that simply because it's not our money.
But,
But again, you're dealing with a finite resource.
we are, yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of people that want part of that resort tax
Yeah.
money. There is, I mean, there's just lots.
And certain
And-
amounts of it are
and-
obligated to other
Yeah,
expenses.
absolutely. And so, I mean, I like the idea of a public safety district because that money is specifically going to our police department. It's not fighting for that pot of money every year of resort tax, you know, with the other department heads that are so used to having.
It's a complicated question because
It
I
is,
think the biggest thing is gonna be from the general funds, the current funding.
Yeah.
How is that impacted, or how will it be impacted again in the future? When you're getting funds from two different sides, but is the need for more funding in different areas arises, then there's the temptation to make adjustments. So you have to look at it not only short-term, but long-term.
well, and if we did a public safety district, I do agree with the mayor in that I don't necessarily want the general fund budget cut that we're already giving to the police department. You know, I want the public safety district to be enough to, meet the salary needs that we haven't been able to meet, and the training, and the possibility of having, you know, a full-time detective, so we can have people out on patrol more. You know, especially in the summertime when we have such increased traffic, and,
Which is why it should come out of resort tax,
yes.
because the tourists are the ones that, you know, when they come, it costs the city more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
I've noticed that citizens have been getting very lax in their parking.
Sure. It costs the city more, however, a lot of people confuse that when the tourists come, the criminal and law enforcement problems start, which is, couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
We deal with crime year-round
Yes,
in Red Lodge, and
yes.
I love the people that I work for, however, you know, there are some criminals that live here,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
but resort tax, I mean, when people are coming in, you've got more people in an area, there's gonna be more traffic incidences. We have events that require more police on the ground.
Yes,
All of those things are a result of the tourism.
correct, yeah.
And therefore should come out of the resort tax. It just only makes sense to me. I thought the resort tax was instigated to help the city handle the influx because we are a resort. Or the added problem to our infrastructure, whether it's water or streets, you know, when you start doubling up the amount of traffic and all of that. So it would be a natural that it should come out of resort tax. I know people like to use it for parks and all of that, but, and yes, the tourists do use the parks, but I think that we need to concentrate the resort tax on what happens when we have an influx of tourism, both to our city physically, but also the police department, fire department, all of those things increase with doubling up our population.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. It doubles our population.
More so, I forget. It's how many visitors come through here, because being a gateway to the Yellowstone,
Massive.
it's like almost 2 million people travel through every year, correct?
Yeah.
Probably close, yeah.
And a lot of,
Yeah, between all year long.
a lot of people have summer homes, the short-term rentals are full. I mean, all of those types of things, all of our events happen between the end of May and sometime in September. So all those events sometimes tie up the streets. I mean, it just makes sense that resort tax should be,
Now,
responsible
the
for
resort tax committee is going to do their survey, but it won't be done by this November. You know, they're working on it. And those are questions that they will ask again.
Keep going, I just gotta swing into my office, I'll be
Yeah,
right
no,
back.
Good.
you know, so, on whether or not, we should use resort tax for, public safety, for workforce housing, you know, because none of that is an available spend right now. And the
Right.
last time we did that survey, and the last time it was voted on was before COVID.
Right,
So people, you know, their perceptions
everything.
everything has changed. So and I think it's a good idea to do a comprehensive survey, like at least every 5 years. You know, minimum every, 7 years, but every 5 years, just to see what people's priorities are on spending it.
Yeah.
You know, because the pool was way up there, because at that time, we didn't have the
And see,
pool. The pool had gone away.
And I
And
like
then-
that, but the pool serves the residents, it doesn't serve the resort, you know?
Well, tourists
I-
go to it too.
I mean, honestly, that's the fact, the resort tax, that pool didn't benefit tourism at all, except that, yes, some tourists will use it.
Yeah,
But the residents are the ones who benefited from
Yeah.
that.
yeah, but we also pay resort taxes, so. It's
Yeah,
not just the
we
tourists
do.
that pay it, so,
We try not to,
yeah.
but we do.
We need to keep the focus that we are a resort town.
We are,
and
yeah.
Tourism is our economy.
Yes,
And if
absolutely.
tourism goes away, the town as we know it goes away.
Exactly.
You know, we're gonna be a Bridger, or we're gonna be a
Edgar,
Roberts or a Joliet. And,
Columbus.
and those are significantly different communities than what Red Lodge is,
yeah,
because we're driven by tourism.
yeah,
So it's always a delicate balance of, we know the impacts, but it's also the necessity
Yeah.
to keep this town as it is.
viable.
And so you just have to keep that in mind, that when the resort tax first passed,
Mhm.
nobody thought of Red Lodge. Red Lodge was a wannabe resort town versus.
We weren't a
true resort
destination,
town.
we were a pass-through.
You know, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
in the recent history, we've become more of a destination, for whether it's seasonal homeowners, or vacation rentals. We've seen the town change significantly and move even more so
Towards
to tourism.
And see, that's the point, is that resort tax is paid mainly by tourists rather than the taxpayers in town. So the taxpayers would be more likely to put it in the resort tax pile rather than put it on their property tax. And that's where I was kind of going, is that it seems to me that it should go.
It just, the only
tourism.
issue is that once again, it has
It has to go to a vote.
well, it has to go to a vote, we have to rewrite it. And then, you have to have that conversation with the public about, like, we take $300,000 out of resort tax, something
Something
else
else
is not gonna happen.
Yeah,
So you've made that your priority, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you
No.
have to have that conversation with people.
how much came out of resort tax for the pool?
98,000 comes out for the bond payment. And then, operating was,
And that is
we
for
took
how long?
in 20 years. We were gonna try to pay it off, or maybe it was 15, I can't remember. We're gonna try to pay it off early if we have extra resort tax, so we don't have that bond payment anymore. And then it is a city park, so the running of it also.
I know it's a
Yeah.
city park.
So we collect the fees, which last year were like 27,000 we collected in fees, and they offset the expenses of it, but probably total
But
with
not
the
the bond.
operation and the bond, we probably pay close to anywhere between about 150,000 a year for the pool.
Comes out of resort tax.
It all comes out of resort tax. It used to come out of the general fund, so. Running of the pool.
The other thing to keep in mind, and it was brought up, I think in one of the other committee meetings, is that when you add to the tax bill, whether, example was garbage, it goes to the renter.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anything that gets passed, whether it's, passed by vote or whatever, ultimately, the less, the lower income individual in the community is impacted greater, because that homeowner that's renting that house passes all of those increased fees on to their renter. You know, and I hear people say, well, they wouldn't do that, or that's not
Oh,
right,
yeah,
or
they do.
whatever, but
It's a business.
we do. You know, we do, because we still have our financial obligations, and, you know, it's just part of, you know, it's a fact of life that,
Well, I'll
those things
continue,
are passed on.
Okay.
I'll continue working with Lonnie on the, I'll get those numbers, and if you continue working on getting the number of calls.
Absolutely.
And,
Will you make sure that the, resort tax committee also, that we are looking for public safety
yeah,
numbers? And make sure that when they do the survey, that that's one of the questions.
yeah, I will, for sure.
I think the reality would be that the fire department will want to be included in some manner.
It's a little too in-depth for public dissemination, you know?
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's good.
I think both fire, public safety would cover both.
Yeah, well, that's just it, if we already are looking at ways to, for the fire department, for that's our next thing
That was
too.
our
But
next
yeah,
thing.
but the public safety, I mean, it would be both.
Fire and police.
But the thing is, yeah, they,
I think basically the resort tax should be the impact of tourism on Red Lodge. That's a resort tax, that's the whole kit and caboodle. But I know it's the pot that everybody goes to for whatever we need.
Mhm.
Okay, fire department budget, update on Doug's, did you have a chance to review those capital expenditures, Doug?
I was under the impression I was, had to review a certain item.
I thought you were gonna look through,
I'll be
We
glad to, but you need to know I need to know what the rules are. In other
well,
words,
basically capital
I
expenditures,
know, but how do you define capital expenditure? Some people
something
say,
that's good for 5 years.
okay, some people over 1,000, that's up to the entity. to determine
yeah, so
what
we
it
don't
is.
just do 5 years as a city. For our capital expenditures, like because the police department will buy like, armor, or they'll buy radios, or they'll buy, you know, and so it's different than like a
Well,
business.
how
so.
can you look through the fire department budget and determine what is a capital expenditure versus what isn't? Or is that something we need to run past
I would,
Dennison first?
no, not Dennison, he's a lawyer, it's not, it would be Lonnie. He would know what the
A
auditors,
definition of a,
what the auditors will allow us to use as capital expenditures. That's really what it boils down to, what does the auditor say we can use as capital expenditures? And-
Again, the main
and
thing
we've
is
been
that
doing
you
this
be
for-
consistent with it. You
Yeah.
can't take one item that's a 5-year-old project and treat it differently than one year. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, so it's, Lonnie will know, because we do it, for everything. We do it for the police department now, because we can buy their capital, their capital expenditures. Whether, it's a police car, or it's like I said, their radios, or, it also includes their equipment that go in the police car,
Of course.
so it's, and,
I'll contact Lonnie.
or I can do it too, because I'm doing the,
Are you doing the other anyway?
yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, the main thing is determining what the entity decides should be. Some companies elect to have such a high number and
Yeah.
expense everything else, and that's okay. This company might wanna say, hey, anything over $500, it all depends on the type of company, the entity.
And where a municipality may have different rules.
Yeah, right, and once you determine that, then you're gonna set it up as an asset and depreciate it, whereas
Yeah.
an expense, you just,
Right.
you write it off and it's gone. So
Kind
that's,
of,
that's what I mean, by,
sometimes it depends on how many tax write-offs you need that year. Whether you're gonna expense it or not, or you're gonna have it, keep it as an asset, it's just,
you
or
can
if you're planning on reselling it, you don't wanna expense it, because then it's all income when you sell it,
Yeah.
so,
there's all kinds of,
yeah.
but I don't know if, seems like the auditor would ask us what our policy is.
Yeah, but that's why I say Lonnie will have that,
Okay.
because she'll, because we are consistent across the board on it, you know, when we buy stuff, we,
Determine right away whether it's capital expenditure or an expense, right from the get-go.
well, it's,
Most times.
it works a little differently in city government, because we have, capital things that we purchase, you know, big things like vehicles and then the building and things like that. But we also have capital expenditures, which we are allowed to use resort tax money for. And those can be basically expenses where you're buying something for that department. You're not paying salary. That's kind of more how they determine that
They
in
don't
the
like
city level.
salaries,
Yeah, we can't do any HR stuff, no salaries, no, but you can buy things. And it was the same before we voted on the resort tax. We could go and we could buy the paint, but we couldn't pay someone to paint it. So it was more in terms of the resort tax. They basically said capital is things, and everything else, the salaries are not. Those are not an eligible expense. So,
And of course, we're having trouble with salaries.
yeah, exactly. But you try to offset it then by, you know,
And training,
no, that has
because it's intangible.
intangible. It's an intangible out there, yeah. But I will verify with Lonnie on that to make sure I'm speaking correctly. But that has been the way that the city has done it. You can use the resort tax to buy things, but we couldn't, you know, for the police department, but we could not pay their salaries. And now we changed the resort tax, so like with the streets, we can buy the plow truck, but now we can actually pay someone to drive the plow truck. Before we couldn't. We can go in and we can pay someone to maintain the park, not just pay for the paint or buy the new mower for it. We can actually pay someone to
Because it didn't make any sense to
oh, yeah,
buy a plow truck and have it sitting there.
pretty much, yeah. Or we didn't, you know, we could go build a brand new park, but we couldn't.
So they can buy a police car, but they won't pay a salary to someone to drive it?
Pretty much, yeah. Out of resort tax, yeah, it comes out of general fund.
That's the same logic to me.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's funding of the asset or expense,
Yeah,
different issue.
Yeah. Okay, so then you're gonna go ahead and check with Lonnie to find out.
I'll verify that we have that right,
And
and
then
then,
pass that on
yes,
to Doug, so that maybe you can go through their list and
I can go through the list and make a recommendation.
that's,
Yeah.
There will probably be some gray areas,
oh, I bet.
Yeah.
yeah.
and,
But if
and.
it's, you know, cut and dried, this is an asset to be depreciated, this is to be expensed.
Exactly. Well, and you know, there again, you know, this would be done, probably as a resolution transferring from the resort tax to reimburse the general fund, probably in June,
Right.
when we know an approximation of how much resort tax we've collected for this past year. Because if we don't have it, you know, we can't spend it, you know, if the money, we can't just hold. But so far, we have collected, you know, over $1 million in resort tax, so hopefully we will
Have some money in that pot.
have some money in the pot that we can actually access. But it will take a vote of council to do that.
And that is really a short-term fix.
Well, it is, but it is and it isn't, because this is something we can do every year without a vote of the public. It doesn't have to go because it's actual capital expenditure.
Yeah.
It's already allowed. Whereas, you know, if we wanted to help pay for the salaries of the fire department or help pay for the salaries of the police department, we have to go and get that voted on.
Yeah.
So no, I have every intention of this happening every year, that we go through and we say, here's $100,000 in capital expenditures that the fire department did this year. And transferring that from the resort tax to the general fund to help pay for that $300,000 that we already spent for the fire department. So it will lower that amount back down, because we had been paying like $200,000, and it went up to $300,000 this year. And that was a significant increase to the fire department.
Did we make any progress on public safety? I mean, we bantered back and forth, did we?
Just that I am going to, get with Lonnie and work on those numbers.
Of a public safety district.
Yeah,
In other words, potential revenue.
yeah, what we would have to ask each homeowner
Yeah.
for,
So
or each property owner
in
for.
in the number 3 here, it does mention Public Works or Mike looking at the cost, but that, you're saying that's totally separate?
That's the cost of annexation.
Right.
And
I guess I was lumping it together since it's under the same.
I
number
can
3.
probably come up with a number on annexation. It'd take a lot of work. Of the revenue, since the revenue department gave me the formula, which by the way is not easy,
Yeah,
but it is based on mills. And so it's a variable because it's based on mills. You know, going through our tax bill and talking to the Department of Revenue, there are a lot of things on there that it looks like we're being double taxed on. Drives me crazy.
yeah,
It's just like the fire department gets $69 period from each.
that's not the fire department, that's the ambulance district.
Oh, that's the ambulance district, okay.
That's different?
69.
Yeah,
But it
we
said-
are not
we had
required
a
to
line
be.
item for City of Red Lodge, that was interesting, and I didn't know if that City of Red Lodge goes into the general fund. I did talk, there's another weird thing. When we pay our tax bill semi-annually,
Mhm.
the treasurer in the county sends out checks monthly. So they're holding that money and sending it out monthly to each of the entities.
Well, part of that is because not everybody pays their taxes on time.
Well, you would think that there would be a big flux at the beginning and then a dribble later on maybe, but they do it monthly, so I thought that was just an interesting thing for cash flow.
Yeah, I don't know why they do it that way.
Yeah, well, I know why they're doing it that way.
Do they hold it in an interest-bearing account?
You think? Which pays for the person who has to write all these checks every month and deal with all the accounting monthly as opposed to semi-annually. But maybe the entities need it monthly, you know? It's like libraries had two different line items.
Well, they have two different line items,
Because part of it goes to the city, and
Yeah.
then we pay, and the other one,
is the county's money. The county pays too.
no, for the city tax bill, there are two. Anyway, it's something that the taxpayer is going to be looking at, this big, long list.
Yeah.
And say, we already pay for this, or we don't pay for that, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Now, I know that our, expense for the fire department went up because the mills went up, but the city also gets paid by the mill, and so the income up to the city also went up.
no, it didn't.
Well, how can it not if
Because
everything's based on mills?
Our mills went down. The number of mills that we can collect went down
The
because
number of mills.
because the mill value went up. So we had to lower the number of mills that we could actually assess.
Why?
That's why, because we can only collect, it's based on, a percentage of the last, 3 years inflation. We don't get, the only new mills that we get are new construction.
But the fire department isn't restricted like that. They just get the straight, whatever the mills are.
Right.
The same number of mills.
That we get, that's why admin and finance is working with the mayor to renegotiate that contract with the
Yeah.
fire department, because right now, we just write them a check for 28 mills.
Yeah.
And the value of the mill went up, so we, instead of paying $210,000 to them, we paid $300 and some thousand dollars to the fire department this year,
Right.
because the value of the mill went up. And so that comes right off the top of the 85 mills, or whatever our mills were that we could, I don't know, we ended, yeah, but it was, so, you know, the more we pay out on contracts based on mills, the less money is shrinking our general fund.
Well, it's hard to budget when a mill is a variable.
Yeah,
I mean,
It
that's
is.
the bottom
So-
line. How do you,
and
Of your budget.
I'm probably okay keeping it, you know, I think it needs to be, the fire department contract needs to be negotiated to a set amount plus inflation, not this, you know, all of a sudden you get an $80,000 increase in 1 year, or a $100,000 increase because the value of the mill went up.
So they got an extra 100,000, so that's where we're
Yep.
going, is for their extra
Exactly.
100,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the city of Red Lodge gets, the mill levy is 85.98 times 2, so.
Yep. Yep.
Because you've got general fund, is this the city? Yeah. General fund, bridge fund,
So if you look
fair
at,
fund,
those,
airport
those are
fund.
all county things. But if you look at,
No, this is
no, I'm just saying,
a city bill. I compared the city bill to a county
right,
bill.
all of these line items here do
Are
not
all
go,
the same.
they do not go to the city. Those are all county.
So bridge, fair, airport.
Those are all county fees. The only thing that goes to the
District.
city is the city of Red Lodge, that's our general fund. And then we also have stormwater on there and garbage. That's it.
Is soil-
everything
what's
else is the
soil and
county.
water?
That's county. So you live in the county, so you still pay county.
So that's the Red Lodge, Roberts ambulance, Red Lodge garbage,
Red Lodge garbage is ours. Red Lodge
Red Lodge
ambulance,
stormwater main.
yep, that's ours. That's why I say the Red Lodge stormwater and garbage are ours.
And the stormwater, is that new because of what we're doing?
It was passed in like 2021, 2020.
With the future in mind.
Right. That's for maintenance of the stormwater system, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, all of this other stuff
Is
is
all-
not city, it's all county.
Yeah, because all of that is the same on the county bill,
Yep,
which I compared the two.
yep. Yeah, the only thing that they don't have is they don't have the city of Red Lodge, they don't have the stormwater, and they don't have the garbage.
So how often does the value of the mill changing?
Every year.
But I mean, is it significant, or does this year stand out?
This year stood out a lot, yeah. So,
Okay, well, we might as well go ahead. If we have any questions from anyone online,
anybody else?
anything else that we need to do from the public? Hearing none, we can actually disperse a little bit, tiny bit early. That's what I was waiting.
I know.
Oh.
So I will go and.
That's just a
I
highlight of my
said
day.
tiny.
No,
Long day.
honestly, our fix this year is to be able to transfer that money from the fire department back into the general fund, because it shorted us in the general fund.
Yeah, well, not just
Almost
because of
$100,000.
that, but it's also right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the bottom line, regardless of what we paid them,
right.
all of their capital expenditures should be coming out of resort. And so that's just a leap.
Well, if they buy a new fire truck for $900,000, you might get a little pushback there. To take that much money out of the
Well,
resort.
they're probably not gonna pay cash.
I know. We can only go up to what we paid them. We
Yeah.
can't go over what the city
We,
paid them.
we can't ask them for $307,000 and,
Yeah.
well, darn. Saying they wouldn't like that.
I'm saying that
Yeah.
we can only reimburse the general fund what the general fund actually paid out up to that amount.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start my workday.
All right. Is Lonnie gonna?
Well, I'm gonna shut this down.